Hey everyone, so I'm going to do my 4th annual garden tour. It's a little late because I typically do these in July. I'm at the end of the year and we have an epic winter storm blowing our way. I think we're going to have 4 nights below freezing. So I figured if I was going to get in a tour, I better do it now before everything is toasted. So the reason why I'm so late in getting this garden tour out is I had some things I was working on around the house, and then Hurricane Ian hit. That really stalled me because I lost several huge trees, I think a total of 6, and so the whole dynamic of my yard, I got way more sun coming into my yard now because of the trees I lost. So I lost that layer of protection of the overstory for some parts of the yard, which is not good for the next 4 days. We'll come over here. So my Groomy Chama, so I actually got my first cherries off of this year. They're good. The only problem was that they had fly larvae in them, and so that kind of takes away the goodness. I recommend getting one of these, and you could probably cover it with some type of protective mesh to keep fruit flies from laying their larvae into them. But they're pretty good. Birds like them too. They do have like this weird nutmeggy finish when you're eating them, but they're good. Suriname cherry actually has cherries on it. It's good that I got some late season ones because in the summer you'll find fruit fly larvae in these as well. But in the spring and then the late season, the fall, winter, you don't find the larvae in there. It's just kind of something to keep in mind. Watch out for the Suriname cherries in the summer. So over here, something you'll notice missing is my pomegranate. Finally kicked the bucket, which is fine. I'll give another one a shot. I'll try to find something more tolerable to Florida's weather. This is my mandarin orange from seed, but I do like how healthy it looks, and it's kind of cool when you grow something from seed to see it, get this tall. And for citrus, it's looking pretty good for Florida. So we'll just grow it out and see what type of fruit we get off of it, and we can always graft onto it if the fruit's not any good. There's a fiddle leaf fig, and then an Apale cactus. And then Apale cactus, we have one in the back that produced enough to where it had extra pads. We can start to eat them because you eat the pads. So my wife went to process them, and she got all these little teeny spines in her hand, and was afraid to eat them because, like, if you're getting spines in your hand, okay, what are you gonna get when you're trying to eat these things? I don't know if we just have a variety that maybe is not preferable when you eat with eating. I don't know if there's a better way to prepare them, but she just was done with them. She just calls us zombie apocalypse food because she's not going to mess with it and try to cook it unless it's the end of the world and we don't have any more food. One other thing I forgot to mention, so with this mandarin orange from seed and then this Groomy Chama, I actually moved them back. I had to move them out of the way so that we can drive through here eventually. And I was kind of scared because trees a lot of times don't like to be moved, but and they didn't look too happy at first. But I ended up remulching this area because the previous load of mulch had all decomposed. And once I did that and kept them watered real nicely, they bounced back. They're looking super healthy right now. So I guess that's the key, is getting a good layer of mulch around a newly transplanted tree, and then get some water in there, and that mulch serves to hold the water and regulate the soil temperature. Probably something good to do if you're having to move a tree. You can see my pineapples there in the back. So this year in the summer I got like 17 pineapples. The raccoons got some of them, but I got most of them. I was happy about that. Just every time I get a new pineapple top, I always start it, or a new pineapple pup. So I've gotten more and more pineapple plants, and I'm just starting to get higher yields on those. Mexican sunflower there, that's all going to get toasted. This is my mango tree. My last garden tour video, I showed you that it had 1 mango on it. So last winter we had a cold winter, and so all of our tropicals took a hit, and so it spent the summer recovering. So I didn't get any fruit off of it this year, because it was, in recovery, but it did bounce back just fine. My strategy is to just let it grow a big full canopy because I want the outer canopy to protect the interior of the tree. I won't prune these back. It's just kind of the strategy that I'm using because I'm in Zone 9B, Central Florida, and we get freezes here. Not always, but when we do, we got to do something. We got to take certain strategies to get our tropicals through. Here's my tagenbolia. So it was leaning the other way. It was like the trunk was kind of flopped over, and then Hurricane Ian pushed it back here pointing to the south. I may have to chop the top of it off just because it's got that lean to it. My Turkish cap hibiscus hedge. So this used to be a lot deeper, but what I did is I cleaned it up, just made it more narrow, and I cut it all the way down to the ground because these things were, I had some of these plants that are probably like 30 feet long. They were just all wrapped around each other, and they were really straggly, and so I took it all the way to the ground. They came back very nicely, and actually the blooms look real nice now, but they were even thicker about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I've been enjoying the nectar off the flowers. It's kind of nice little snack. But yeah, it's not as, like I said, it's not as deep now. It used to be further over here to where I got this this avocado tree. And so this is my first grafted, select, cultivated variety of avocado. It's a Donny avocado. And so I'm gonna probably put a big trash can or something over it. It's gonna get babied through this cold weather because I want it to, avocados, would have some tolerance to the cold weather, but this is young and I want it to be a much bigger tree before, I'm hands off during the freezes. Okay, over here in my tropical little oasis here, as you can see, it's built up. I've got logs in there and then mulch on top of that. So just kind of built this up over the years to give the bananas lots of organic matter, and they really love it and they do really well in here. It used to have a much larger canopy over it, but Hurricane Ian changed that. We still have a big oak tree over here, but it did have oak trees over here to the left and the right that are gone. Took out the fences there, so so less of a canopy, more sun, which is good to help them grow during the warmer months, but not good during the cooler months because that overstory provides a protection. Now up here is what I've in the past have told you are my ice cream bananas, and there's some confusion and people selling ice cream bananas that weren't ice cream bananas, and so I found out these aren't actually ice cream bananas. So the Florida Food Forest Facebook group, a gentleman posted pictures of what the actual banana on an ice cream banana looks like, and it has a distinct looking stem on it. So I compared the bananas that it produced this year, and they were not, it was clear that these weren't ice cream bananas. I'm pretty sure these are actually Namwas. Based on the way the stem looks, these are Namwas and not ice cream banana. Interestingly enough, a neighbor, I picked up a banana that was I got it planted in the back, but it was just sitting out during yard waste day in front of the neighbor's house, and I asked if I can get it. And so got that planted in the back, and its fruit, the stem on its banana looks like an ice cream banana. So I'm calling that my ice cream banana. So, and I got to try one of those bananas for the first time this year, and it was good. But I would have much larger bananas here, but one of those oak trees that was over here to the left fell onto these bananas during Hurricane Ian and just smashed the pseudostem. I was, however, able to harvest the rack. Over here, this is my Dwarf Brazilian. Although it's Dwarf Brazilian, it seems rather tall. But it produced a rack for me, but the rack didn't develop. This is actually the first banana that I had where the rack didn't, it just stayed small. It never grew. So I don't know what these taste like yet. So this is my Lacatan. This is like the banana of choice in the Philippines. And I got to try that for the first time this year. it's a good banana. So when I first tasted it, it tasted like Cavendish, you know, your store variety bananas. But then if you eat them when they first ripen, that's how they taste. But if they ripen more, the fruit becomes much more of a yellow color, and they're richer. They got more sweetness to them. So it is a good banana. Just got to let it ripen more. Don't eat it like right when it turns yellow. This is my double Mahoy, and I got dwarf Cavendishes in there. And so I've spread Cavendishes were my first bananas when I first started getting into bananas, and I've got them kind of spread out in the yard. But I will tell you that even though it's just a store variety type taste, they produce consistently. So it's just a good variety to have. And they do produce a pretty good rack, which I have 3 racks that I will have to harvest because they're about to get toasted from this cold weather. So I'm going to harvest those today. I'll show you those. Here's my avocado from seed. I got this tied to the fence here. You can see that rope because Hurricane Ian flopped it over. It just kind of, it was leaned over probably about 30 degrees or something like that. So just tying it up with that rope and pulling it back, it's setting it straight. So I should be able to let it kind of reestablish itself and then get that rope off of it. Here's a citrus from seed that was in my yard when I first moved in here. I was like looking at it, clearing out this area, and I was about to pull it up, and then something in me just said, hey, just let it grow. And so that's that citrus tree. It's in the shade, so it kind of grows slow, but we'll see what happens. There's a grapefruit right on the other side of the fence in the neighbor's yard, so it could be a great grapefruit. That one of the seeds fell over here. Here is a loquat from seed, and so it is in, well, it's got a lot of shade, sun now. It has grown really slowly here in the understory, and I actually have a younger loquat in the back that is fruiting for the first time this year, and it's out in the sun. So loquats will grow faster and produce sooner if they're in the sun. So just something to think about with your loquat. It still looks pretty healthy, and it'll eventually produce. I'll just leave it right there and let it grow. And then here is my carambola starfruit tree. This is from seed. It's in between these dwarf Puerto Rican plantains. So I have to come in and cut some leaves back so it's getting sun, because I don't want the plantains to shade it out. And unfortunately, for these plantains, they took a hit from last year's freeze. Finally got to a point at the end of this year where this one here is pushing out a banana flower. So it's about to shoot out a rack, but unfortunately we got a freeze coming. So I have gotten a rack. It was good. The plantains are smaller, obviously it's a dwarf, but they were quite tasty. And then there's a dwarf Namois over there. So yeah, that's my, like I said, my tropical oasis. What I did do, I'll point out, is I've been planting like seeds in here. You can see a little mango growing right there. And I've got other little trees in here because, when you're planting a food forest, you kind of start out with bananas. They'll produce for you rather quickly. And then I'm just kind of putting some trees in place, and maybe they can take over this area at some point. And I can just easily put the bananas in other spots. So we'll see if that succession works out, but just kind of thinking ahead. Over here is my Hayden mango, and interestingly enough, last year when we had our freeze, this is in an understory, and while my other mango over there, the larger one that I showed you, took a hit, this one didn't even look touched. It does real well in this understory. It's more open here now, so it may not be the case this time around, so I am going to probably wrap it. So that freeze last year actually served to make this tree bloom like crazy, and then it had a lot of tiny fruit on it. I lost a lot of the fruit. I ended up with just 5 mangoes. I didn't know, however, that mangoes are susceptible to powdery mildew, and it will cause the fruit to fall off. The mangoes were delicious, and it's funny, the mangoes taste different at different stages of ripeness. We'll see what the cold weather does for this mango this year. I will say that Hurricane Ian did some pruning for me. A branch fell off and broke it here, and see where it broke. And you can see all that new growth because of that break. Over here, I got this $89 greenhouse from Amazon. I didn't know the beauty of a greenhouse and getting, your young plants to grow, things to start from seed. It's just a really nice tool to have if you're into trying to start your own stuff. I've got some bamboo here, and hopefully this will get nice and thick one day. Hurricane Ian dropped some logs into this area, so I took out some philodendrons and when I was clearing out those logs and ended up putting some pineapples over here, so I'm kind of taking over the place of some of the philodendrons. And actually, you know why they call them philodendrons? It's because if you find yard debris in your yard, you can just fill them up. So you just throw the yard debris in there, and you don't have to worry about putting it out beside the road. So, well, that's not why they call them philodendrons, but I think that name fits really well. And then this is an avocado from seed. It was much bigger than this, but my son one day was mowing and didn't realize I had an avocado right here. So I put a tomato cage around it so that he knows not to run over it again. So that's a whole new shoot that shot up. And then, so that's like a West Indies or Guatemalan variety because it's doing much better. But over here, this Mexican variety of avocados, so like the Haas and all that, those are all Mexican varieties, but this is from one of those seeds. And they don't do as good in Florida, so you can tell. This thing is shot up and produce leaves. It'll die back, and then another shoot will shoot up. So I just hadn't done anything to remove it or anything. I'm just leaving it there. Here's a mango from seed. It's grown real slowly here among the philodendrons, but I've been doing a better job of cutting the philodendron leaves back to give it more light, and it's doing much better and growing. There's a grapefruit from seed over here. I want to jump over here to the other side. I hadn't really gardened toward over here before because I really didn't have much going on. Lake Wells First Baptist Church was selling these. They were able to get some commercial grade juicing oranges that were left over. They were able to raise money through the sale of these things, but I got 3 of them. But what the farmers do these days, they get different varieties with different rootstocks, so they have variations within their groves, because if everything is a clone in the grove, then that obviously makes them more susceptible to pests. So they vary the genetics, and they got all kinds of newly developed varieties. They're not completely resistant to citrus greening, but if they're properly cared for and that they will actually live a productive life while having citrus greening. So citrus greening will ultimately affect them and maybe even kill them, but they still can be productive. So there's currently no developed tree that's completely resistant to citrus greening, but I'll just show you the variety here. So, and these actually, they show the rootstock. So Valencia and Volk, there is that variety. This is actually a wild citrus that was growing up against this oak tree that died. And then this is a Hamlin with the sour orange rootstock. And then this one's done the best. So this is a Vernian US 942 rootstock. And so this variety is supposed to be more compact, but high yield. And it's out of the 3, it's doing the best. So I wanted to take a more permaculture approach to growing these. But as you can see, I kind of got it in the grove situation because I got a line of citrus out here in the open. But I'm going to end up probably putting some olives in between them. Maybe some type of nitrogen fixing tree as well. And then there's none now because it's all decomposed, but I've been keeping wood chips around them, and they are not entirely in an understory, but they're right up against this line of oak trees here. We'll go back over here.